because the masjid was devastated. There was one Sahabi who was laying on the floor. He said, the only reason that I knew when the salah time was is I could hear the dhikr of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for after the adhan. That's the only way I knew when salah was, because most of the people in Medina had either been dispersed or killed. It was that bad. He damaged the Kaaba. Him and rulers after him shelled the Kaaba, burnt the curtains. They did a lot of wickedness. And a lot of Bani Umayyah, with the exception of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, radiallahu anhu, who tried to redress some of the devastation, the great majority of Bani Umayyah did commit a lot of wickedness. And so Yazid and those similar to him, or Abdul Malik ibn Marwan's famous statement, whoever disagrees with my rule, make my sword to agree with his head. Meaning, decapitate him, cut his head off. We don't accept that. That's unacceptable. Right. Is there a final question?
Yeah. Just want to advise on the youngsters, because some of the youngsters, they can fall into the trap of the Ghaib Muqaddis. They can become confused. So after this talk, what advice can you give to our youngsters? How can they go from here? What can they do next?
Alhamdulillah, salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Question is an advice to the youth regarding what they can do to keep from falling in the trap of cults and other things like that. My advice is threefold after this lecture. My advice is threefold. One is, alhamdulillah, you've been born Muslim into a family, most of whom, I'm assuming, or all of whom are Muslim. You now have a task ahead of you. All of you should commit yourself to learning tajweed of the Qur'an enough to where you can recite it without making major mistakes, and that you can lead yourselves and others in salah. You should try to perfect that, so you understand the book of Allah. Try to find a reliable translation of the Qur'an in a language that you understand, where you can read a portion of it every day, whether it's a page or half a page, but try to always read just a portion of what the speech of Allah means every day. And when you find that there's a command or something in there like that, try to follow it. Try to put it into practice. Number two, surround yourself with good company. It is very easy to surround yourself with bad company. Surround yourself with good company. For example, the people who the youth or the young person who may be in charge that the imam teaches, or the scholarly young man, or the knowledgeable young man, or the one that's hafiz of the Quran, that he's knowledgeable and he has a good character. Put yourselves around him and go places. Doesn't mean that you have to just be sitting down looking around the room, because we're not allowed to have fun in Islam. It doesn't mean that, but it means that surround yourself with good company, and that will protect you from a lot of the wickedness. And then number three, when you're in gatherings of people, social and otherwise, and you hear something that you've never heard of, that your parents have never heard of, that your grandparents have never heard of, that the knowledgeable brothers whose good company that you keep have never heard of, that their teachers have never heard of, then it's probably something that's new, that's not from this religion. And it's of those things you have to be careful of. Because as young people, it's always one of the dangers that someone can come to you and take you someplace where you really shouldn't be, because of the fact that you didn't check up on what they said or what they did. And I will give you an example. Someone came to me once and he said, Alhamdulillah, Brother Jafar, my life is going so much better now. And he was really happy. We were just talking about different things. And I said, so what are you doing now with yourself? He said, oh, Alhamdulillah, I'm learning Islam. Oh, I've never learned so much before. Oh, this is great. He said, yeah, I'm trying to get a masjid built for our Sheikh. I was like, oh, that's really good. Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar. صلى محمد رسول الله. صلى محمد رسول الله. حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. الله. لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. اللهم رب هذه الدعوات التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة الذي وبعث مقام محمد الذي وعدته لا تخلف الميعاد. Inshallah, I'll end with this before we close. So the brother, he came to me and he said, Alhamdulillah, we're trying to get a masjid built for our Sheikh. That's great. He said, yes, inshallah, what we've been doing is I opened an off license with some Muslim brothers that I knew. I thought, yes. And what we're doing is we're selling alcohol to lessen the amount of the kafirs, because by weakening the kuffar and wiping them out, we get reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that will also bring us money to build the masjid that we need. And some of our brothers are even selling drugs and so on and so forth to lessen the kuffar in East London. So I thought, okay, how can I approach this without slapping him or throwing him against the wall? So I had to think. And him and I, it took months for him to get it through his head that this is not how you build a successful community, by having an off license and hoping that a kafir dies from drinking scotch or bourbon. This is not how you build a community. But it was very simple for him to fall into that. Now you may laugh and think it's something easy, but it's very easy. How many young people fall into something like that every day? P.T. Barnum said, there's a sucker born every minute. And sometimes it's true. So what we have to do to keep from being a sucker is look at the people that you're around, and like I said, test those things. If you've never heard of it, your parents have never heard of it, the local imam and his students haven't heard of it, the scholars that you hold in great regard have never heard of it, it's probably because it's not from the deen. It's very simple. It's just like if somebody comes into your life and says, I'm your father, and your father denies it, and your mom denies it, and your grandparents deny it, and their parents deny it, it's probably because he's not your father. So you have to be in the same way with other things. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Yes. So inshallah we'll close with this. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa rasulina Muhammadin abdillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa sallam ajma'in ya arhamar rahimin. La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. لا إله إلا الله ولا نعبد إلا إياه. له النعمة والفضل والثناء الحسن الجميل. لا إله إلا الله مخلصين له الدين ولو كره الكافرون. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم لا مانع لما أعطيت ولا معطي لما منعت ولا ينفع ذا الجد منك الجد. اللهم اغفر لنا المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات والمحسنين والمحسنات والمجاهدين والمحجبات والمنقبات يا أرحم الراحمين الأحياء منهم والأموات. O Allah, we ask that you accept this gathering from us today and make us among those who worship you and you alone with sincerity and thanksgiving. And O Allah, we ask that you make us among those who follow the early generations with righteousness and compassion. And O Allah, we ask that you protect us from the wickedness of the cults and the people that support them. And O Allah, we ask that you protect us from the wiles of shaitan who has sent these cults amongst us. And O Allah, we ask that you make us among those who sincerely seek knowledge for your sake and your sake alone. And O Allah, we ask that you give us good company that is not from amongst the cults but among the ranks of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And O Allah, we ask that you keep us upon the way of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And O Allah, we ask that you protect us from our feet slipping while on this path. And O Allah, those who are not on this path, we ask that you give us the ability to guide them. And O Allah, those that are struggling on this path, we ask that you establish them firmly on it. And O Allah, we ask that you protect us from the evil that will come to us from within ourselves and outside of ourselves. وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا ورسولنا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم أجمعين يا أرحم الراحمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك إنه غفور رحيم يا أرحم الراحمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.